when we start to get to the point where we stop trying to identify and figure out who we are, we actually discover who we are. We are this multidimensional being. We are what we call the spirit of source of creation. And that, you know, our true essence is not only the sources, but you're the creator, the created, and the observer of creation. And at that point, a lot of the stops and all the barriers that we've created in our own capacities and how we can really shape not only our reality, but the collective reality starts to come to the surface. Because the moment you say, I am this, you now shrunk yourself to that label. And the thing is, a lot of people have multiple labels because at work, they're this, at their family, they're this, with their partners, they're this, their community, they're this, and now they have many versions. Exactly.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Scott Ware, the publisher of Radiance Magazine and the president of Radiance Multidimensional Media. This is Interviews on Xpnsion Network and on social media. And I have with me a very special guest today, Franco di Nicola. Hello, Franco.
Hi, Scott. So great to be with you, and thank you for the invite to connect with you.
Absolutely. In trying to figure out what I was going to refer to you as, are you a master teacher? Are you a master coach, a transcendence coach, spiritual thought leader? And I think you're all those things, but I know you're too humble to take on any of those. I just want to say about Franco, since I started following you, following your posts on Facebook and the generous amount of material that you do put out, I've been just so struck by the clarity, which makes sense because you're also, I think, a clarity coach. You mentioned clarity a lot, and just of what's happening in this world. And in fact, in Radiance, this issue, in this issue here, we find you talking about the world unfolding within and around us, and like what's going on and how's it been. So I'll just ask you right off the bat on this. You say people are just these days not willing to meet perceived expectations just to be accepted anymore. They're just not. And what is that looking like in the world right now? Well, how do you help people get through that?
Well, the thing is too, is, people are finding that whatever labels that they've been given, or the fact that they have to take on a role to be accepted, say within a family or an environment, or even a partner or something of that nature, is becoming more and more uncomfortable. Because what happens is whenever we take on a particular role, it diminishes our capacity. It's like you're not being really yourself. And a lot of people have gone through that for their whole life, where they haven't been themselves. They've always tried to meet up to somebody's expectations or a collective's idea, meaning collective, meaning family. It could be their community, could be their gender, could be with, their race or whatever it is, right? So people put a lot of effort in that. And what's happening now with these energies coming in, that feels more and more uncomfortable, because the true aspect of you, who you really are, really wants to come to the surface. And to play a small, because it's like this, you're growing in this vessel we call the physicality, you're growing. And as long as you're abiding to, say, different protocols, ideas, concepts, and whatever else, it creates all this confines. And now you're starting to feel squeezed. And I've noticed it also with people that have, invested a lot of time, energy, and so forth to, say, take on a particular career, invested money, invested time, invested education, invested, whatever required. And then they went that direction because they kind of followed what everybody else was telling them or something like that. And now they're feeling that this is not me. I don't feel aligned with this anymore. They notice it shifts their energy, it shifts their whole experience, and it's not feeling true. And this is the thing right now. Why? because it's really, really important for us now, because all of us are a powerful being. All of us are a powerful gem. All of us have a very specific signature. All of us are totally connected to what we call the human experience, but the world experience, what we call Gaia's experience, and our presence are here. We didn't come here with the full intention to just have the experience of whatever was being offered and to apply or adopt that for the whole duration. Some figured that, okay, this movement forward cannot be done, and they're come and gone. Many of us have come and gone too. But right now it's like, no, what I feel really powerful right at this point in time is that if I am being myself, then I'm a powerful contributor. And that's why we talk about the unfolding within and the unfolding in the worldscape, because
Right.
people are talking about change in the planet. You know, how do we change the way of life that we're doing right now? And I've said it in a lot of my work that I've shared, is that we have been in what we call an unnatural state. We've been living in an inverted world. We've been living in a compressed and world where we never allow ourselves to be ourselves. You could see it with children. You take children, they start off with powerful imaginations, powerful creativity, no real fears about anything, that really want to experience life. And then they go through a conditioning process to kind of adopt what is a way of life. And that starts, you know, with the parents and education, media, you name it, and so forth. So they never really got to express. And now that process of reversing is occurring. And this is why more and more people are feeling that push and saying, you know, I'm not going to buy to all of this stuff. And look at what's happening right now. This is really powerful. With all of this restriction and dictatorship that's been happening all over the world, specifically in certain countries more than others, where you are told what you can do and what you cannot do, what you need to wear, who you can engage with, or anything of that nature. The fact that you are now mandated to take substances and so forth to live life. And many of us have abide to the idea of having a, you know, living in your own home or wherever, so you can't travel or do anything of that nature. That has been a very powerful accentuation to amplify what we've already been experiencing as a way of life, and amplify to the point of getting a saturation. And then for us to make an individualized choice, which we are also doing collectively, saying, okay, time to stop playing this small life. Time to stop taking on information from so-called self-directed authorities and so forth. So you can see that, and that's part of the action that's going on right now.
Well, and to be more specific, when you talk about people are not as willing to fulfill the roles that pleased other people, but did not please them because it was fake, it was inauthentic to them, that means disassembling our identity, who we've come to know. So even though we want freedom, it's very difficult to let go of things, because on the other hand, we're like, well, wait a minute, this is who I've come to know myself to be. If I let those planks go, who am I?
Exactly. And that's the question a lot of people are asking themselves. I don't know who I am. Who am I? Why? Because all of the perceived ideas and labels that we've put about ourselves, saying, I am this, I am that, I'm that, and whatever, is crumbling. Like you said, it's dissolving. It's that identity is collapsing, because that identity was a facade that we took on to play that role. But now that we're not fitting the role, we don't identify ourselves, you know. And the thing is, when we start to get to the point where we stop trying to identify and figure out who we are, we actually discover who we are. We are this multidimensional being. We are what we call the spirit of source of creation. And that, you know, our true essence is not only the sources, but you're the creator, the created, and the observer of creation. And at that point, a lot of the stops and all the barriers that we've created in our own capacities and how we can really shape not only our reality, but the collective reality starts to come to the surface. Because the moment you say, I am this, you now shrunk yourself to that label. And the thing is, a lot of people have multiple labels, because At work, they're this. At their family, they're this. With their
Yeah,
partners, they're this. Their community, they're this. And now they have many
exhausting.
versions. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's take a jump right now to, you have said that I believe it was 2035 is about the time we're going to be in a full 5D status as a planet, as a people. And what I'm curious about is, what does that look like? What does it sound like? What are there new colors, new sensations? And so what can we look forward to and work towards?
Well, to understand, I mean, just to bring a little bit of clarity, a lot of people talk about we go from 3D to 5D, and there's a lot of focus on third dimension to fourth dimensional consciousness. These, again, when we're talking about dimensional, we're talking about dimensional consciousness. Okay. Then we have density. Density is different. Density is the platform that form operates within. Okay. So that means the higher the density, the more flexible you become in the sense of your spectrum of light, your what looks like form becomes more malleable. It is less restricted. It has less guidelines. When we're talking about dimensions, now we're talking about dimension of consciousness. What referred to fifth dimensional consciousness on planet Earth is very different. It's using the same consciousness, but it's very differently expressed and lived on another planet, for example. Right. So every planet that you would go on that, say, is emanating and operating in fifth dimensional consciousness will have a different expression and experience. So you can't relate it and say that's that. Now, really what's happening on planet Earth? Planet Earth, when we got retooled 15,000 years ago, we started with organic 3D. Okay. Organic third dimensional consciousness. Okay. Now, when the introduction of that inverted world, which was the inverted matrix, the inverted every aspect, even our encodements got changed and everything else, we went from organic 3D, we went to inverted 3D. And then we went deeper to inverted 2D. And then some went into 1D. Now, each time we went that, first of all, organic 3D saw the world, inverted 3D saw the world upside down, where everything is in reverse. Same thing in 2D and 1D. However, there was still a recognition of a higher aspect of yourself, even though we weren't really using it and seeing it backwards. So that means all of our systems, everything reflects that inverted world where what's true is false and what's false is true, right and wrong, good, bad, all little stuff, polarity, everything was all constructed.
I was gonna say, I know it was inverted just even, years ago, because the things we valued in society were upside down. We gave virtue to when people make a lot of money, as opposed to when they do good things. So yeah, I'm glad, where we're at now, where because of the current condition, that's been inverted, right?
Yes. And so the process of dissolving that inverted aspect and going into that natural organic state. So what we're really doing is we're going from 1D, 2D, and 3D, all inverted, going into organic 3D and organic 5D. And we had an inverted matrix before. That got turned off. The transmitter, the satellite that was transmitting, which was our moon, got turned off. So the only remaining part of our inverted world that exists, first of all, our memories about it. We think that we're still in that inverted world, so we're still dealing with it, but we have an ego that is designed specifically to make everything backwards. So we still have that we are through the process of purging. Then all of our systems, the media, everything still reflects that inverted world because it was all constructed that. But one last thing. Our whole history, our whole memory, every experience we've had from birth till just recently is all constructed in that inverted world. So all of our labels, definitions, perceptions, belief systems, and so forth are all related to that inverted world. This is why we're going through this major purging of letting go of our histories, our stories, our ties, our labels, whatever that we've taken on, because all of that is only reflective of that inverted world, right? So that's kind of the process. Now, to prepare humanity and the souls to be able to have a smoother transition, Gaia has kind of been supporting us to be able to venture into the inverted world temporarily until the end of 2022, which is, another almost 2 years. But during that period of time, we have to understand we're going to go through some pretty intensified experiences only to help us purge all of that stuff, get to the point where we would be okay letting go of all the structures and systems that are all right from its root designed in that inverted world. Because right now everybody puts a lot of dependency on our systems and so forth to protect them and to make them feel secure. So, we're not so easy to let it go. But look at the world right now. Look at all the systems, how they're reacting. Even the playmates involved are showing higher levels of ridiculousness and showing the polarity even much more powerfully on the inverted part, so that people kind of, because this next wave is really about disclosure, and disclosure is about really seeing beyond the veil, seeing really how the game is, and then making a choice that we're not going to support the game any longer. So there was 2 platforms created. They're intermingled, and then we have the third one. So the organic 3D was introduced as a platform, and then we have the organic 5D which was introduced as a platform. Now, those 2 platforms would support us to experience 3D and organic 3D, organic 5D, and bits and pieces until the end of 22 of the inverted 3D, 2D, 1D.
Okay.
Now, the organic 3D, the difference between the 2 is the amount of axis of consciousness you use. The difference is there's a little bit more focus in the organic 3D in the physical realm of the world, meaning you're more associated or more using as a feedback your physical experience, where the organic 5D uses less feedback from the physical and more from the spirit essence. Okay. You're still in physical in both, but in organic 5D, your physicality has less impact and also is lighter, meaning that it is not subject to a lot of what we experience as intensified emotional experiences and physical, like pain or illness or anything like that.
Sure.
Now, pain and illness is not a requirement in organic 3D. It was more in the inverted stuff. But the process of being caught up in any of that stuff in the 5D is a lot less, because there's a stronger recognition of your source essence, your spirit essence, where the 3. So there was such a strong call for many of the souls on the planet. So we're talking about bodies, we're talking about human entities and souls, that were saying, hey, we never really got to experience the organic 3D. And we were not quite ready to go into organic 5D. Others were ready. So what ended up happening is the 2 platforms were created with a time sequence of fading out organic 3D by 2035. So the point was, okay, you're going to have this much time only to really get everything you want from the organic 3D before it all merges. Those 2 platforms unite as one, and the only thing that's going to be dominant is organic 5D. And at that point, so now that doesn't mean you have to wait till 2035. Anyone can shift at any point in time. Plus, you're not locked in. That means that you can be organic 5D and go play in organic 3D and even get a dabble. Well, that's still around in the inverted stuff, but your home base is organic 5D, or your home base is organic 3D, which you can hop around. Now, to give you an idea, the choice of souls that decided with bodies and everything else to make the home resident organic 5D was about 550 million. The organic 3D was about 2.5 billion, give or take a bit. The rest of them were not interested in either platforms, and they were just still wanting to play in that or inverted world.
And assist us essentially in our adventures.
Exactly. So they are considered the extras of sorts. So they
Sure.
don't have a very specific signature that is dominant, but they are very flexible to work with us. So they'll play whatever role, including accentuated polarity or negativity or anything of that nature, in accordance to assist us at this point in time. Eventually, what happens is, as these things change and they're no longer required, they will no longer be in our live stream of sorts. And eventually a lot of them will go through the, the process of showing that they died or something like that, or they just disappear from your reality. Now we have to understand, as much as people say that we have 7.8 billion people, they're not all on, they're not all active, because depending on where you are, those are the ones that are active, meaning that they appear as spectrums of light and will present itself as a physical form. But, I don't want to get into those details.
No, and it's fascinating. I should ask this question at this point is, how do you come by this information? I know you've been teaching for 30 years and I know you get the downloads. Explain how you come by this. And
the thing is, I don't channel, but the thing is, my soul speaks through me. Okay. So it takes over. And I mean, Franco knows quite a bit, but nowhere near to the amount of stuff that my soul shares. So
sure.
If you've attended any of my workshops or anything of that nature, you're looking at how do they come up with 2 days? And I've done retreats for 7 days. I'm the only speaker doing 8 hours a day, and still we're scratching the surface. So it is my soul. Now, to understand this, my soul, the soul, I shouldn't say but the soul that embodies this physicality, it is 84 souls combined. That means it merged with 84 souls. And it didn't happen all at once. When I first originally arrived in 1957, it was only my twin soul and myself that merged as one soul. And then my over souls with the soul families started to merge. And as they more merged, it increased its access. Now, the soul came from a parallel universe that has a replication of what we call our universe that our planet happens to be in. It has advanced more, so it has more access to not only information, but also in its engineering capacities. So the soul that is in my body was also directly involved in creating solar systems and so forth and planets within the galaxy, okay, and within the universe. So the reason it's decided to come here at this point in time, because planet Earth is really a hub of sorts in a whole quadrant of our galaxy, and it plays a very significant role. And it was a powerful experiment that was never done before. So just to give you an idea, when the planet was retooled 15,000 years ago, my soul with a team of other engineers, and it was being headed by my soul, retooled planet Earth, rewrote the whole operating system, rewrote and put in this organic matrix, reseeded, was involved in bringing in other sentient beings from other planets. So the plant life, all plant life on the planet is a sentient being. Gaia is a sentient being. Every animal, insect, everything that exists of any life form of existing is a sentient. So it learns, it grows, and it shares. So all these plant lives, animals, and so forth have come from different planets that were slightly tuned differently to be able to cohabitate on planet Earth. Now they needed a new physicality, because the physicality that existed before, we had Lemurians, Atlanteans, and before that there were Lemurians, and there were other so forth. So this is the most current series of creation. So what they did, one of the thoughts was, okay, we've never done this before, but we're going to take a blend of 12 different species, take the genetic encodements, take the operating system, and blend it into one physical form and see what we can do with that. So
Right.
we're made up of 12 different species, 5 primary, 7 secondaries. So those species were blended and the human form was created. The DNAs are representative or transmitter receivers to each of those species. And so that means whatever they're experiencing and learning is shared through our DNA, and whatever we experience is fed back to them through our
Right.
DNA into theirs. Now, there are other species that have on other planets that do have a blend, but not to the 12 blend. And in some cases, and my body was actually modified, the body I'm using, that has 14 DNA strands in it. And that's even been proven scientifically because they've tested and they say, well, how come you have 2 extras? So, and of course,
Is the 12 species, are they like the 12 zodiac signs? Is there a connection?
there is somewhat of a connection. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
So that comes back to the involvement of it. And this was when Planet Earth was retooled. The other thing that was different about Planet Earth, it was retooled so that it would be self-evolving. So every sentient being that was on the planet was tuned to self-evolve, including Gaia was modified, and so was the organic matrix, because the organic matrix, by the way, is not isolated. It's connected to many, many, many other planets and solar system. So there's an exchange that's going on. So Planet Earth was tuned to be able to start off at organic 3D and evolve all the way to 9D. Okay. Humanity was tuned the same way to be able to come in as an organic 3D and evolve, and it would work hand in hand with the evolution of Gaia. So really the instigators were the humans coming onto the planet. The humans also had many, many capacities or capabilities that were coming in from all the capacities of these other species. And whatever was learned and grown and experienced in physical form was not only a marvel, but it was also a very instrumental to upgrade all of that was it. And our planet was set up in such a fashion, not only to have that experience, but to be a hard drive. And what I meant by a hard drive, it held many spectrums of archives of information that would tie us in very intimately, very directly to all of the other planets that were close, because we were kind of at the hub of our whole quadrant of the galaxy itself, and we would have that powerful connection. The other thing was that the planet was designed that it had such a broader variance of frequency. And because of our DNA, actually, at that time was all fully online. If you met, say, an Arcturian or a Pleiadian or something of that nature, you would feel at home with them. You would not be startled or anything like that because you carried their genetic. It's like you meeting one of your parents, and saying, oh, oh, that's my parent. It's my genetic parents, right?
Sure.
So you would see them as I wouldn't say call it directly a parent, but a genetic family member.
Sure.
Right? And then the level of communication would be not through words, but telepathically very clear. The interpretation was not going to be an issue. So that was kind of the thing involved. So to go back to your original question, the soul was involved in all of this. And because of all of that, and everything that has played out all of this time, it set up, how can I say, it felt that it was important to come back right now to restore it, because 10,000 years ago, we had another set of hybrid species that came onto the planet and offered a different opportunity. And that's when we went into that inverted world. So the information that I've always shared right from the beginning, I'm not into the supporting of polarity. I understand it's there. It does do what it does. Okay. And it does serve us in a very powerful way.
Right.
But at the same time, everything that I've shared is never about good, bad, right, wrong, to understand that everything is just an experience, everything is, and so forth. So, because that is our true nature. And it's always been in that regard. So the information is always not something that's stagnant, it's something that grows because we all have it within ourselves. So that's how all of this information is coming. Of course, when I started 35 years ago, sharing it more publicly and start working with people more individually, of course, what was shared was maybe what we call watered down, reduced. Only there was always accuracy, but it was more story around it, and it didn't go as deep
Okay.
because humanity wasn't ready. People
Sure.
weren't ready for that. And even the stuff I was sharing, a lot of times people said, oh, this is already too much for me. But now you notice, if you saw even what I did 15 years ago or 10 years ago, because there's still a lot of videos of that around. I don't have it on any of the social medias anymore because everything is upgraded. But if you look at the difference, I mean, the information is pretty well exactly the same, except now it goes in more depth and more expansion. It gives her a deeper understanding. So because people are more ready for it. That's the difference, really.
Okay. You know, I want to mention, and that was great, a great answer. And I just want to show a little bit of this. Yeah, you have been doing this for a while. That's a different look for you.
Yes, that goes back maybe 12, 13, 14 years.
Yeah. And I see people, the kinds of things they're saying about you are deep. And I mean, this person, I've worked with many teachers and guides, but Franco's always been the ultimate because of his straight up honesty and love. And there's so many other testimonials on here. Are you still doing that kind of one-on-one healing work, or are you more of a teacher?
No, the last couple of years, specifically the last couple of years, I don't do one-on-one hardly at all now. Usually my soul will guide me who to connect with, and I would be more of a, how can I say it? A guide or something of some sort, where it's usually individuals that are on the fast track of sorts to share more consciousness with other people. Like the call I did with the person in Bulgaria, she's a facilitator that works in Bulgaria and translates a lot of the work that I put out in their language. And so, you know, I would do a session with this person because, you know, I don't like calling myself a mentor or anything like that, but she calls me that. But at the same time, you know, I help her get a little bit more clarity, and you know, she has her own little things. I have been doing one-on-one for many, many, many years, and I used to do a lot of them, but I haven't been doing that because my soul has been wanting to shift to just to put out content and things of that nature to reach more of the masses. And you know, we are reaching more and more people, but you know, at the same time, Scott, as you know, if you're at a certain vibration, only certain people will gravitate to it. I mean, you could see some of the nonsense, you know, just as a word, not that I'm claiming anything is nonsense, that others would put out there, and they're reaching millions of people. They're reaching hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands and sometimes millions of people. But, you know, when you put some really powerful, impactful truth, and I'm not the only one because there's others that do share, it doesn't have the same reach. But the thing is, the reach is expanding, and it's going to expand exponentially moving forward because more and more people are getting on board, and more people are saying, okay, this, you know, this stuff that I've been putting a lot of energy and time and power, it doesn't resonate for me. I need to discover myself. I need to connect with myself. This is about, it's self-discovery. It's the main thing.
You're going to be appearing at the Soology Fest in Sedona this Memorial Day weekend, May 30th weekend, 28, 29, 30, something like that. You're a keynote speaker there, isn't that right?
Correct. Yes, yes. I'm looking forward to meeting whoever else. Are you attending yourself?
Yeah, we'll be there. Yep.
Okay, great. It'll be great to meet you. I never met Todd. I mean, I've talked to Todd a lot, but but at the same time, I really love live events and coming together with people. And, you know, Arizona's got a really nice energy there. I've done several workshops there over the years. I haven't been there for quite a while now, but I think I've done 4 or 5. Joshua Tree was a couple of them I did there. But, you know, California and Sedona and some of those areas, I've done a lot of different workshops over the years, and it's great. I'm looking forward to going back there. The only thing that would restrict, if we're once again restricted, we can't fly there, because right now, you know, crossing to the United States is not quite acceptable, but I'm feeling and I'm sensing by that time a lot of this other nonsense will have blown off completely. Because I mean, here we are in almost the end of March. We still have a couple of months before we go there, but I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'm a huggy person. I love to connect with people. I love to have people in front of me and communicating with people. And there's some really amazing people like yourselves and others that are going to be there doing their part. And I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it in a big way.
Yeah, and so you can look for, so Todd Medina was who you're referring to.
Yes.
Follow him on Facebook or on YouTube. His show, Sology One Studios. He's interviewing several people a day, high vibe conversations. And yeah, getting together is going to be great. I was at his last one. I believe it's the same venue, which is an outdoor venue with just maybe some tents overhead, but there's a lot of, it's outside, and there's a lot of distancing people can do too, if that's what they're comfortable with. So I wanted to ask you about play in a moment, the importance of play and what it is. But I also want to mention at the end of the article, there's you wrote something for the light bringers. And the light bringers, I imagine anyone who's watching at this point in this interview is probably a light bringer. And essentially, go ahead and maybe restate that message you have for them as far as their role in this evolving world.
Well, the thing is, I can expand around that. The so-called, we don't want to label ourselves as, say, I am light fighting the dark or illuminating the dark. The thing is, as long as because as long as you're still polarizing dark and light, then you're still fragmented. The thing is, it's all. See, our true nature is holistic. That means all parts united as one. So you create a beautiful blend. You have a large spectrum. So it's not about dark, it's not about light, and it's full spectrum. And in full spectrum, you're at 0 point, you're a creator. The most powerful state of creation is in unification, 0 point, oneness, whatever you want to call it, because at that point in time, you're accessing full spectrum sourceness. Because out of source, as spirit can be, light and dark, like they say, but, ultimately it is all that full. So the thing is, with people, we're not here to fix anybody or change anybody. As someone is more of a way shower in a sense of first achieving within yourself that level of unification, that clarity, which in a sense, many are work in progress too. Don't put yourself on a pedestal or anything like that. We're all working through things because we've all adopted in certain parts of our experience for the longest time. But, you end up being someone that actually is, showing your essence. You're loving and showing and sharing consciousness and sharing awareness, and even assisting people to see that they may be so focused in, say, an old polarity or a story. Because the thing is, people talk about healing and whatever else, right? And one of the things I say, don't focus on the healing because it makes it much more complicated. What you want to do is you want to shine clarity, consciousness on an experience, which creates automatically a change. Because healing is a process and it's not as effective. Once upon a time is all that we knew. So there's nothing to heal. All you're going to do is you're going to look at things and you're going to see it for the experience that it provided. Doesn't matter how polarized, how traumatized, because the traumatized is only a label and definitions we've applied. And you know this, Scott, I'm sure you've noticed that two people can have the same exact experience. One gets traumatized, the other one goes into exhilaration because it was exciting for them.
Yes.
Right? And I've seen this over and over again. And the thing is, it's just a label we apply to it, feeling, that we've been victimized because we did something or somebody did something to us. So in the 35 years that I've been working hands-on with people, even doing regressional stuff, and when I used to do a lot of that, once we look at it from a clear set of eyes, their experience, whatever may have happened that they've labeled as trauma, it changes. The moment they drop this whole idea that they even have to forgive and just acknowledge their presence, thank them, and blast them with love, Even the one that played the most aggressive role, negative role, dissolves. In a sense, all of a sudden, everything changes for them. And I've seen this happen with thousands of people, because I've done sessions on thousands of people. We're not talking a few, thousands over the 35 years. And each and every time when we go and look at any part of it, when we see the beauty of it and everything else, it totally transforms. There's no such thing as a healing. Even when people talk about, and I know some people may not like this idea, but because there's a lot of investment on healing. But the thing is, even when somebody's having a physical experience, illness or whatever it is, you want to look at it. You say, okay, what's going on? Don't deny it. Don't judge it. Don't label it. Oh my God, this is happening right now. Be with the experience, communicate with the body, ask the body what it's trying to tell you or anything like that, or what it wants to share. If there's an experience in it, that's great. So what you're doing is you're shedding a clarity, a higher consciousness to whatever it is, but you're creating a connection. You're reestablishing a relationship, because most of us don't have a relationship with ourselves, don't have a relationship with even our body. We have a fragment, and that's why the last episode I did was on relationships, the relationship effect, because it was very important for us to reestablish these relationships. Believe it or not, we talk about fragmentation, but people don't realize how much we fragmented ourselves. We fragment ourselves from our body, from our human entity, which is our identity as a human, our soul, our mind, and then the ego. We have all these fragmented selves, and then we're kind of dancing around, but we're never really communicating. So the realignment, the reunification starts with us, realigning back with our bodies, with our human entity, our soul, our mind, or our overall consciousness, which is called the mind. And of course, then you're going to realize what the ego is. The ego is like this software program. It's so-called AI that wants to remind you and take you back to the old inverted world. But, at the same time, when you have a relationship where you don't demonize it or anything like that, and you go into appreciation and thanks, then it's easier to take it out of the equation, because it no longer serves, not because you hate it, you judge it, or you anything about
going back to what you said about when things are happening, and even the most aggressive of the people, you don't even need to that victimize you, because we went into a victim mode for a bit, perhaps, hopefully shorter time than longer. But then we get to the part where we're looking at it with that kind of clarity you talk about, we can see what it was for, as opposed to the additional meaning we attach to it in that moment, which is usually what's put is the lid that gets sealed, that seals that experience away, and it's inside us. And now something that happened to us when we were 3 years old or 9 years old is animating us as 30, 40, 50-year-old adults. And so being able to look back at it. So no more healing, no more healers. Is that taking too long?
Yeah. So it's the healer's new job, if they call themselves a healer, is a transformational facilitator, and basically helping people to see why it's there. I mean, we will not have any experience whatsoever unless it's served in one way or another.
Right.
And, a lot of times, even the most, what you can call the darkest or the most dense or the most intensified version, there's a reason. We have to agree upon it. You could say, well, I didn't know better. Yeah, that's true to a certain degree, but at the same time, that was the only choice you could see, because that's the state you were in. That's the consciousness you were playing with. And you needed that experience to kind of give you what you needed at that time. So a healer, even when we're talking about energy healing, it's really, what are you doing? You don't want to disempower anybody. You're not going to fix anybody. You're going to now provide a certain frequency that they may not be familiar of because they never had it. So you hold a space energetically and you let them align with that frequency, because you can do energy work. And if they don't align with it, then they will have relief, but it's temporary.
Okay.
But if they align with it and you kind of help them realize that they have the capacity within them, then you're going to find that would stick. In a sense, they would be able to do it themselves in an empowered state. Now, Does that mean you only do it in one visit? No, because sometimes you can only go so much the energy frequency, then the next time you can bring it further or whatever it is. But really you're empowering. So the thing is, even when I was doing energy work, and I still do it sometimes, but I tell people, okay, we're going to just activate the energies within yourself. I'm just going to hold the space for you. And I walk them through it so that they feel empowered. And then because they're in that empowered state, now it's going to stay much more solid with them rather than, oh, you left, now everything crashed again. That's not the way we want to establish it. So.
Right. Okay. You talk about the importance of play. You sometimes refer to your workshops as play shops. You talk about our playmates, and you mentioned earlier in this interview that playmates can sometimes be aggressive people towards us, that doing things to us that we would see as bad in a 3D state, I suppose. But if we understand everything happens for our highest and best good, that our higher self is dutifully guiding us on the path that we decided on before we incarnated. It's just that we don't know what's coming next. And yes, surprises happen, but that's part of the adventure. And I guess play is part of all that, right?
Yeah. Well, look at it this way. If you had to say, let's work on this, or let's address this because, this is a bad thing or something of that nature. You're creating an energy that slows it down, and it is, what do you call it? Something that you conflict with. Adversary, or how you say it?
Yeah. Adversarial, you're in conflict.
Yes, exactly. But the moment you say, okay, let's play with this, first of all, your whole energy changes. It becomes lighter.
Yes.
Okay. In my sessions that I've done with people, I've never said, okay, let's fix this or work this or whatever. Okay, let's play with this. And not only that, I remain playful with them in the sense of, okay, let's see what they did to you. No, what role did they play? How did you feel while they were playing that role? And it already changes the construct within themselves. It's like,
if you can get them to that point where people are playing roles, if you get to that point, then yeah, there's freedom, and that's something you can work with as a facilitator.
Exactly. So, because really, we're here to play. This is a powerful video game of sorts. We're here. Yes, absolutely. It has a certain level of realism, but it is very flexible how we experience it. So that's why I use the play, because it changes the whole dynamics, the whole energy, and the seriousness of anything. And that's why we call it the play shop or whatever it is. Yeah. And I use it a lot because people have a different association when it comes to play. I know sometimes people would turn around. This was years ago, because I don't have those type of people I deal with today. What do you mean play? That was serious. This was that, or whatever it is. And I go, yeah, you can play with that idea, and it is just an idea. But if you really want to shift this, let's play with it. Let's be fun with it. Let's use our imagination. See it that it's actually not that real. And if we had the freedom to change it, how would you change it? Let's use your imagination.
Yeah, because quite often in a lot of trauma, there's shame and guilt, or one or the other of there, and that feels bad. It doesn't feel good. And we were there. So if I can get to a place of play that I know I have an option of playing, then I automatically, I'm out of being a victim.
Exactly.
And that's helpful. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's one of the things too, to realize there are no victimizers. There are role players that may look like a victimizer. But the thing is, for you to experience yourself as a victim, you have to feel that someone else has power over you, first of all. Second of all, that they actually do something that you don't want them to do.
Right.
That's an illusion, because that's not possible. Our whole chemistry, our makeup does not allow that.
Right.
We may have amnesia to the fact that you gave them the instruction, or you're not conscious that the instructions were provided.
Yes.
Because we're the ones that say, hey, I need to have an intensified experience to wake me up, shift me, do something of this nature. Can you play this role? And I don't want to know that you're going to play this role. And I want it to be this, and this will be level 1. And if I don't achieve it in level 1, bring it to level 2 and then level 3. When you see it that way, then yeah, you're going to look at it and say, oh, because I've had people that have had very abusive parents or abusive somebody or bully or whatever in their life. When we actually have, because some of the processes I've done is I have them see that person appear in front of them. I say, okay, close your eyes, see them in front of you, you know, and then we would have a communication with them.
Sure.
Now, one of the gifts that came as part of the package is I can communicate with people's soul. So their soul can communicate. I used to hear everybody's thoughts, which I only get a little bit of it now because I turned it off because it was insane. You don't want to know what people think. People think 10 times more than they say. And it's all over the map. So it's like,
yeah. That ego mind just is a ticker tape constantly running.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I had a little bit of fun with it in the beginning years ago, because, you know, somebody would be saying something, but I knew exactly what they were actually thinking. And then I would tell them, and then they would get embarrassed or whatever it is.
You didn't play poker and win a bunch of money because you knew what they were going to play?
No, I was not. I never allowed myself to play with that.
Sure.
But I would be able to see it through their eyes if I did play poker, because through their eyes, I could see what they were looking at. I still do that, a little bit of that, but I don't do it for that type of thing. It's only when I have to see what they're seeing in their construct and stuff like that. But anyways, I took that all out. So when I'm working with the person, then I can direct them not only what their soul is actually saying if they're blocking it out, because a lot of times it confirms them anyways, but also what the other individual says. And I have them hear it themselves, kind of, you know, okay. Say mom, for example, played a particular role where, you know, made her feel unworthy or feel that he was, you know, he or she was just, you know, going to fail or do whatever, right? And then we would ask the mom. I say, okay, let's ask your mom. Why did she say that? Most times, if not almost 100% of the time, the mom would say, because you asked me to say that. Why, mom? Why did I ask you? Well, because you wanted to be self-empowered or this or that, whatever it is. Right. This is coming from, so they're receiving that message from the mom that's presented. And the mom could be on the planet or off planet, because if they died or whatever. And it's like, whoa, you know, and then even look at different things. It shifts completely, because really when you understand it, that we're just playing with each other. We're all friends, and we're, you know, we make agreements and we exchange agreements. Of course, we're going to pick people that can actually play the role, because some people are in a range of frequency that can't play the role. It's like asking me to go play a nasty guy, you know. I can't go there. It's like, I can, even if I pretend, I can, you know, pretend, and I have done that before in the past where I can fake being angry, but, you know, I'm laughing inside because I'm not, because I'm just pretending. But, you know, to play a serious role of that nature, I couldn't, but others can, because they're, you know, they're in that range with their own disposition and whatever else, they can play the role. So normally the person that's going to play is the one that can play it.
Sure.
You know?
I had a direct experience of that. I took the Landmark Forum. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yes, I've heard of it. Yes.
And it was very pivotal for me. I did it, I don't know, 25 years ago, where I got my story. I got that I was telling myself a story that I was believing unconsciously, which was holding me back from being fully self-expressed and doing what I wanted to do in my life. And at one point, they lead you through these exercises where you realize, you go back and you realize a thing that was told to you or said to you or done to you that was sort of, you know, way back, you're 3 years old, 5, whatever. And it was the seed that was planted that created you to, you know, to go off your path a bit. And then if you wanted to, and a lot of people did this on the breaks, they would go out to the payphones at the time. And people, I'm sure these days, are calling their cell phones, and they're just calling that person and apologizing to them. And I apologized to my mother and said, I'm sorry, you know, this was said, and I held you accountable for the, and I resented you. And she would just be like, Really? I mean, she vaguely remembered it, but it certainly didn't hold what it held for me. What my imagination did, and took it and extrapolated, and which was a defense mechanism, which, as I understand, is helpful for us. But at a certain point, we got to say, okay, thank you. That I don't need you to do that for me anymore. I need to be free of this completely.
Yeah, and exactly. And that instruction is given very easily as you're communicating with someone, because from a super conscious level, you're going to say, okay, we're done with the experience. You don't have to play that role anymore. And then the whole dynamics changes. Now, one thing you may probably paid attention to it, just to bring a little bit more context to it. Have you ever remembered at one point in time that you may have said something or acted a certain way, or completely out of your character towards someone?
Yes.
That's because they asked you to play that particular role and you said, okay, I'll do it. You weren't conscious of it, but at a super conscious level, you said, okay, I'll play that role. But then you know what happens after a while, you forget. And this is why, you can call your mother and she goes, well, I beg you to remember, because it was just at that moment, it was like, okay, you told me to do it, I did it, but then you're not going to hold on to it and say, well, I did this. I'm going to have to ask for forgiveness at some point or another.
Yeah.
Because it's not that way. It doesn't work that way at all. That was just a construct of that inverted world of looking at it. This is why, one of the things I said, and I know it was a difficult thing for people to accept, was that don't go around saying, I forgive you, or forgive me. It's really go around, thank them and love them for the role that they played, and vice versa, because the only thing to thank you for is for the ego, right? And it's just that part. You probably heard Ho'oponopono, the statement, I'm sorry, forgive me, I thank you, I love you, and stuff like that.
Yep.
Well, it updated a couple of years ago. They only used the two, thank you, I love you. That's it. They took the other two out because they came to the realization that that was not necessary.
Yeah. When you
Why?
mentioned forgiving people, and going around doing that, that could be passive aggressive, right? I forgive you.
Well,
The energy there is not the same as I love you.
yes, the thing is too, you have to understand, when you forgive somebody, and I've said this for years and years, just pay attention to it. A lot of times the story behind it is you did something wrong. I'm going to forgive you because I'm going to be the better person, but you're still held accountable for doing it wrong. But I'm going to just let it go for now.
You're
Right?
still taking up real estate in my head.
Exactly. Not only that, and you're also locking in a certain range of your frequency because you can't get out of it. Right.
Right.
So, but the moment you thank them and you love them and acknowledge them for that, that real estate goes, everything changes, and then there is not one better than the other. Everybody's equal. And we were just playing with each other.
What would you teach in schools if you were the school superintendent of a particular district? What would you want to teach third graders, fourth graders?
Well, that's an interesting question because I always wanted to be a teacher. But then when I looked at the way it was done and there was restrictions involved, I said, nah, I'm not going to be teaching this way. I'll teach to the people. When I say teach, I would share with the people that, are at different stages in their lives. Sometimes they're kids, but most of the time they're adults and so forth. One of the things I see as a teacher is, first of all, to give value to themselves in the sense of seeing themselves for what they are, that they're magnificent, they're all beautiful gifts, they all carry significant gift sets and or capacities and whatever else. I would help them walk through connecting with themselves, feeling, being themselves, and also not directing them to one particular craft or another, but to enhance the craft they already have and see how it can be an offering to the planet and things of that nature. To understand that we're all the same, we all love each other, we're all here to play together, and there's not about taking sides, there's not about the genders or the racial stuff or anything of that nature, because we're all beautiful. And I remember, when I was in the 50s and so forth, we were living in a neighborhood that one person, a colored person, moved into the neighborhood and everybody was like opposite in arms. And to the point where the couple that moved in had a little boy. And the parents were telling the kids, their kids, not to play with them. And I was playing with them. And everybody's saying, what are you doing? Whatever it is. And I was going, he's my friend. Everybody's my friend, you know.
Yeah.
And I welcomed them because I didn't put any of that. And that's what I would share is like, see them all beautiful. It doesn't matter their skin color. It doesn't matter where they're from. It doesn't, nothing matters because everybody brings something unique. And really my focus would have been that. And also, yeah, you would teach some of the basic stuff that you require for the game, but also make them understand that this is a game that is only because we're supporting it, but we're transitioning it. Even from years ago, I would have said that because at some point they would have already understood that. But when
what about mastering emotions?
Well, yeah, even understanding emotions, because, you know, we don't really understand emotions. I have to say that emotions are powerful.
Yes.
But what's happened is we lost the trueness of emotions. Emotions was a way to include the physical representation of what we call a body, our representation of how it feels to be in a body. Because when you experience our true emotions, it really changes not only chemistry, but how you feel. It changes your whole energy because you're now in joy. You're and we're not even talking about happiness because that's a polarized thing. Happiness, sadness is all polarized, but true joy, true exhilaration, feeling emotions of love, emotions of connections, and so forth. These are very powerful. It makes it really accentuates the whole experience. Then when the inverted stuff got put in and the ego, whatever, then we went from using emotions to bring more color, more realism to the experience, to where the emotions drive us. So you notice emotions got polarized and it drives us. Because if you're having an emotional reaction, not only do you reduce your capacity of consciousness, you reduce even cognitive way of processing anything. You reduce also any potentiality of any choices whatsoever. And now you feel out of control. So if somebody gets anger or fear.
So how does it look when you've mastered your emotions? How does that, what does that look like?
Well, when you've mastered the emotions, then it does not drive you anymore. You now can have the experience, but you're still in charge.
In neutrality?
I'm sorry? Your neutrality. Yes, absolutely. So what you're doing is accentuating different experiences. Now, when you've mastered yourself and you don't have any of those older programs, you're not going to have fear. You're not going to have anger. You're not going to have resentment. You're not going to have guilt. You're not going to have any of those emotions because all of those are tied. Because if you're feeling guilty, feel how it feels. If you're feeling resentful, notice how you feel. If you're angry, notice how you feel. If you're afraid, how it feels. You know, it does change your chemistry. It changes how you feel in a body. You feel all around you. So by mastering it, no longer it doesn't dominate you any longer. Now you can just use the emotions, and of course you're not going to have the polarized one. You're going to allow that to really bring more pleasure, more joy, engagement, or physical engagement in the experience, because that's what the emotions are. Now, can you feel tremendous happiness or what we call joy within yourself and express it in tears? Absolutely. Sure. You know, things of that nature.
It almost seems like we need to be somewhat detached as humans, which doesn't feel in some ways maybe human to us because we're so used to, letting the emotions run the show. But to step back and go, well, I'm just going to be the observer here. That's a learned skill and a valuable one, right?
Well, in fact, it's a natural skill, but we have to kind of bring that out. We have to unlearn the other. Because it's all of that I'm sharing, it's natural. It's our true blueprint, our true natural. But we've been conditioned and programmed to use it differently. So a lot of people say, well, you're in neutrality, you can't experience life. No, you experience a larger spectrum of it. You have more freedom to experience, because if you're afraid, for example, if the emotions of fear dominate you, Your choices are limited. Your adventures and what you do and don't do are going to be restricted. The way you perceive an experience is tainted or filtered very powerfully. So you don't get the full spectrum of the whole experience. Like if you're going to go on a roller coaster and you have a tremendous amount of fear, you're going to be in survival and in reactive mode in the roller coaster, and you're missing out the thrill of going fast and upside down and sharp corners and feeling those sensations in the body. You miss all of that because you're holding on for dear life. You know, you've reduced the whole experience, and that is reflected to the whole life. Imagine this: how many people we do not meet or give ourselves the opportunity to meet because we're afraid of rejections, or we're afraid that they're going to say something to us, or afraid that, you know, you're going to have a bad reaction.
Yeah.
You drop the fear. You don't mind saying hello to anybody, but you have no expectation that they're going to accept you, or the fact that whatever. When you don't have expectations, because the other thing is, it's also this expectations, conditions, or anything like that. Drop all expectations, you drop all conditions, and I'm telling you, you meet some amazing people. You get to discover and learn so much about people. You learn and discover about yourself by that alone.
People say they want freedom, and they say, but the kind of freedom you talk about, I don't know if that's better than winning the lottery. The lottery seems like it gave me a lot of freedom. What's that person missing?
Because there's an association that money equates to freedom, because that's how we've been conditioned. But I'm telling you, if you're not feeling free, guess what? Doesn't matter how much money you have, you will lose it. You will spend it in different ways. You will have people that will want to take it off your hands. You're going to find that you may feel guilty about it, because all of a sudden now it's like, oh, I see all these family, friends, and people that you know, they all want, and you know, and then all of a sudden you're like giving it off. So that's not truly how it works, because if you're going into a sense of freedom, meaning I can create my own reality, I can experience it any which way I want, I now can connect and play with anybody as I want, then you're experiencing freedom. And if you need resources, that while the resource thing is still in play, then those resources will come about accordingly to support you. So it's not about, I want the resources to feel good. You're already in that state of good. You're feeling good, feeling that natural state of yourself, your abundant essence of yourself. And we're not talking abundance in the sense of monetary or anything of that nature. So the you see it, when you truly feel free, it doesn't matter what you have and don't have, you really experience life very differently. And do you feel fear? Because the other thing is, true freedom is you have preferences and you have choice, consciously choice. So somebody can say, hey, you want to be my friend? You want to do this? You want to do that? And this is the requirements. And you can turn around and say, yeah, you know, that's great. Thank you for the offer, but I'm not interested in that, but I'm going to go play over there. And somebody can offer you and say, well, you want to be part of our team. You have to be one of us. And it doesn't resonate, whatever. So you have that freedom and the choice, because as long as you have fears, for example, that you're going to be abandoned, or the fact that you're not accepted, then you're not free, because you're going to make only the choice that goes what direction? The choice where you feel or think that you're going to be accepted, but then you're negating all the other potentialities that you have and all the other choices. Why do, you know, people don't make mistakes. They make a choice based on whatever is operating within themselves, and they will have that experience. I've had people that I've regressed and said, oh, I made a fatal mistake in my life. You know, I went down road A instead of road B. So we go back to the choice point and allow them to make choice B, and then stream them through that consciousness. And they realize, wait a minute, that wasn't any better. I just thought it was. It was fine there, because they missed out on certain opportunities, or the fact that it went down a path that they thought was better, but it wasn't, because it actually was not supportive of them. So the thing is, this is why part of the process is you want to let go of the history, your past, and all. It's really the labels and definitions, but you want to drop any of the controls that your sorry, not only the ego, because the ego loves your emotions, but all the emotions drive you, because then you're free. you're much more free, because in your true free, you design your life and there's no restrictions.
Right. Right. What are the two best things you like about being in a sacred union relationship?
Well, one of the things you find that when you're in a sacred unit, there's no expectations on one another. There's no labels and definitions applied to one another. You can have an open communication where both understand and can appreciate each other in that regard. So I find that, you know, I've had two other relationships. One was 26 years, the other one was 6 years, and now with Kimberly, it's almost 10 years. And it was a huge difference. Now, the first two were experiential, very experiential, enriching, because I got to experience massive polarity, in a sense, because we were off total different scales. The first one was very religious, closed-minded, basically a younger version of my mother, really. But, you know, that was kind of an agreement to go down that path to get an appreciation for humanity and whatever else. The second one was just another accentuation in a different way. But again, there was always that polarity stuff. Then when the third one came along, which was not under agreement, that was kind of a bonus that plugged in, we found that we were almost at the same page. It didn't matter what I said, maybe not totally understood it all the time, but was open. But she was already open because she did a lot of work on herself, and she also was dabbling in all of the stuff. And that's how we connected. She actually watched my videos and then wanted to have a private session, and she came for a private session and so forth, a couple of private sessions. And then we were kind of drawn to each other. So when we're talking about union, how did you call it? Union? No,
Sacred union?
Sacred union. Thank you. I was trying to remember what the sacred part was. Sacred union. It's basically a recognition of each other's beautiful essence of sourceness within each other in their particular expression. There's no trying to control or tell each one what to do. There's an appreciation for their uniqueness, their thing, and then there's an openness. This is the one thing I said to any relationship. It doesn't have to be sacred or whatever, because all of them are sacred anyways to some degree or another, because, you know, we're serving each other, is that you want to get to a position where it's not a 50-50 compromising, or you allow each other the space to be fully each other, and then celebrate the differences, celebrate in the dance that occurs there for whatever time it provides. So, you know, a lot of people get into the idea, I got to find my twin soul, I got to find my soulmate, you know. Okay, we only have one twin soul, but I can tell you, everyone that's met their twin souls, and they were larger numbers, got disillusioned afterwards and saying, oh, wait a minute, I thought it was going to be like this divine sparkness and whatever. Yeah, energetically, they would feel it, but they would be pushing each other's buttons or whatever it is, because first of all, the magnetic was there, and running away from each other was a little more difficult, and we were basically serving each other. Same thing with soulmates. We have lots of soulmates. I mean, soulmates is any soul that you've had other lives with or made an agreement before coming here that you're going to meet up and play a role. But you could have 10 soulmates in one lifetime. Is it the answer and whatever else? No, we were kind of conditioned to find your idea of whoever, and then your life's going to be divine. So the thing is, in a sacred relationship or any real pure state of relationship, you're already complete. You're going to go in complete. You don't want to go in fractured. You don't want to go in as incomplete, because then you create dependency, alliances, or attachments and things of that nature. This is why I find that people, when there's separations, they go into major meltdowns or whatever it is, because, you know, they built a life around this individual. I mean, yeah, we're going to have love, and we're going to have connection with the person, and you may miss that part of it. But you're not going to be devastated, because you know you've already been feeling, where everybody's been whole, that it's time to move on, because the roles are finished in that regard. But if you're having a reliance is that's my world, it's going to feel like your world's crashing, or part of it got ripped out. You probably heard people say, I lost half of myself when this individual died, or this individual left me. Well, it's because you didn't see yourself whole, and now you brought them in and try to make yourself whole by themselves. But then nobody's free then. Nobody, look, you know, I've always said it for many people, and I'm sure you realize it. Nobody but wants to be owned. Nobody wants to be wanted. It's only
Right.
a superficial, temporary. The ego goes, oh, somebody wants me, loves me, whatever it is. Then after a while, somebody's still wanting you and trying to grasp on you. And it's like, ooh, get that off me because I don't want any part of it, because
Right.
nobody wants to be wanted from a true essence. They want to be even with each other in the sharing of equal balance and neutrality, whatever it is. But nobody wants to be wanted or owned, because this is what happens. A lot of people get involved in ownership. I invested time in you, now you owe me. How many times have you heard, I give you the best of the years of my life, or we made a commitment for this or that, whatever, because then they build a life around that. But the thing is, life is built around you, of your own, and then you share it with others that are doing the same. And then that way, no one is fractured or fragmented. Everybody's whole, and the wholeness is much more fun to play with each other.
It is. I mean, when you can catch that codependency, nip it in the bud and work through it, even if you came into a relationship where, okay, you found love and yeah, you weren't whole and complete, but there's a few things to work out. And that's what the mirror of the relationship is for. Better sooner than later, so that you can get to that wholeness and just enjoy each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. A lot of healers, facilitators, spiritual people are good people that want to help the world. But the whole thing about helping themselves first seems to be left out of the equation a lot of the time, or they feel that by helping this person, I'm helping myself. But a lot of people out there are doing things maybe to get into heaven. Oh, I'm doing this because to get into heaven, it's really why I'm doing this for, so they haven't really taken care of themselves. They just think, I'm supposed to help humanity, and that's what I'm about.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to that as far as the importance of helping yourself first? The oxygen mask in the plane
Yes,
example.
yeah, that's a good example there, because the thing is, I've worked with other facilitators in a sense where I was training facilitators years ago, and so some of the groups that I did, because I was working with several facilitators at once, and they came. I would do the workshop, if you want to call it play shop, where they hone their own skill sets and whatever else. But one of the things I found is that if you still have a lot of polarity ideas and concepts, if you have not grounded yourself to yourself from a higher state, I found that when people were working on other people, that if it triggered a point where it triggered a hotspot for them, they became less effective in helping the person walk through a journey.
Sure.
I've done some direct hands-on one-on-one. And when I say one-on-one, we had somebody on the table, for example, or somebody that was being, assisted, not so much in the energy, but to clear. And then I would have the other facilitator doing the work, and I would just coach them along. And I found sometimes, let me just give you an example. Somebody got into being raped as a child, for example, right? And this is the so-called client or the person that was being worked on. And so they go into an emotional reaction. Now, the facilitator there was not neutral. In fact, she had a similar experience. Before you know, the two of them had meltdowns. They were both. And then of course, I had to step in and kind of redirect them both. So, and then the other thing too, I found and just to share, if you are helping somebody work through their stuff, whatever that's going on, and you're still giving power to polarity around it. For example, somebody said, oh, my husband is doing this and this and this. Well, okay, let's take a look at it. How do you feel about that? Whatever it is, what's going on, you want to look at the program. But if you're a facilitator and you're saying, well, my husband is doing this and this, well, you have the right, tell your husband not to do that, or whatever it is, now you're taking on a side. You're basically reinforcing that old pattern of that polarity, right, wrong, good, bad, and neither one are going to benefit from it. So the point is, you want to really work on yourself so that you can get to the point of neutrality. You may not be 100%, that's fine. But when you are working with someone and it triggers you, make sure you document it to yourself so that you can go back and work on yourself too. A lot of people say, well, if I help people, I'm going to be okay. Well, it does not clear your stuff. You know, maybe it does some nudging or whatever else. You have to look at why you labeled it a certain thing, why it's still very active for you and so forth, because it's important for you to clear that out. So yes, I mean, it starts with each one of us because we all carry some form of baggage that we've collected. And the baggage was serving for a period of time, but now it's not. So to be a facilitator at this point in time, I would say stay active in addressing your stuff. And you want to get to the point of neutrality. Neutrality is not weakness. Neutrality is powerful because then you could see things of face value instead of emotionally charged or polarized. You
That
cannot
was my
fix
next
something.
question. Neutrality sounds like such an unassuming word, like neutral, like Switzerland, but actually it's the most powerful place you can stand in, right?
Yes, yes, because now in neutrality, you're not caught by whatever's playing out in any levels of polarity. Because the thing is, you know, people say, well, you got to fight. Well, the thing is, doesn't matter if you're climbing yourself a light bearer. The moment that you're going into fight mode, you're not only lowering your vibration, you're supporting the lower vibration anyways. So the thing is, in neutrality, you're accessing higher states of consciousness. In neutrality, you're much more your source essence. In neutrality, you see the full spectrum, not from a narrow perspective. You now see the bigger picture, and you can be a better facilitator walking through all of this, and you see much more potentiality as options of which direction or what to do at any point in time in neutrality. Because if you're not, and you're polarized, and you're basically tuning down your capacities and what you can actually engage with. So that's, you know, I know a lot of people say, well, that means passiveness and you're going to let people stand on you. No, you're not fighting, but you're also now stepping up and saying, no, I am not participating. I am not complying. I love you. Thank you for the offer, but I'm not going that direction.
That's the interesting thing when you jump, you're engaged with someone at that level and they think the choice you're making is the opposite of the polarity that they're currently locked in. They can't see outside their own polarity when you're in unit at that moment. And then you're going to be in that situation with someone when you get triggered, right? Or myself. Yeah. And hopefully, what should you do when you find yourself in a trigger or in a, where you know, just a place that you just feel bad? Where do you start?
Yeah, I mean, if you're by yourself or you're in a group or something, or a gathering of some sort, yeah. You know, the point here is if you get triggered, you have whatever, no matter where you're at, put your attention on the breath first and foremost. Because when I mean about the attention to the breath, you really, all that matters right at that moment is really paying attention to you breathing and following the rhythm of the breath. That takes you out of, it lowers the charge so that by doing so, you're able to see more in a broader perspective by just doing that part. Now, the other thing is if you have the opportunity is write down what got triggered because you want to explore it when you have the time. If you're at home, you're feeling like crap, you know, that's a different thing. Focus on the breath and say, okay, what's my story? What did I write down? Okay, such and such said this, or I watched this on TV and now I'm feeling this way. Say, okay, I saw that. What does it mean to me? How do I feel about that? Well, it reminds me when you believe that you failed, or that the fact that somebody took advantage of you, or you made mistakes, or whatever it is. Or say, so you write all that stuff down. And what you want to do is you want to get to the core story of how that came about, because you'll notice a lot of times it just goes through a dead end. And some other times it goes to that point, but if you ask the question, it dissolves. For example, there's people that say, well, my mother always said this and this and this, right? But they don't say that at first. They'll say, well, it reminds me that I'm a failure. Okay, why do you believe you're a failure? Well, because I heard it from many people. What are some of the people? And then you're walking back and you say, well, my mom used to say that I was a failure because I never met up to her expectations and so forth. And I say, okay, so mom said that. What does that mean to you? Well, mom was telling me that I was a failure, but I go, do you believe that you were a failure? No, not really. I go, then why are you accepting what mom is saying? Let me ask you a question. Was mom saying it so that you could see yourself that, hey, I'm not a failure. I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to do it on my terms?
There
Or
you
was it
go.
she was trying to take you down? Oh, no, it's the other way. Bang, you see a chain reaction of not good enough,
That's
failure, all of that stuff disappear.
so when we're going through life and somebody says something, and let's say someone says something negative and they walk away and another person says, wow, you weren't affected by that. I'm like, yeah, I just, can relate. Another time it can happen where it did catch something. And that means you got something. That means I got something I got to work on. If that person said something that triggered me, they, sometimes we're triggered, sometimes we're not. And when we are, that's the time when we do the work, right?
Yes, whenever you're triggered, that's indication something is still active and it's ready and ripe to be addressed. See, the thing is, one of the distractions that's really powerful that people are starting to realize more is the fact that if you're blaming anyone for anything,
Mm-hmm.
for your experience, for your journey, for something happening in your life, then what you're doing is the ego's at work, keeping you projecting outward and never looking at the label, story, program, belief system that is saying, hey, I want to be seen so we can address this and get rid of it. That's it. So the thing is, if you want to stay effective and stay most efficient, somebody could say something, somebody could act a certain way. And I know sometimes you say, well, they just said something embarrassing or something of that nature. You want to look at the story. So I said, so they did that. Great. They served you. Thank you. I love you. Let's take a look at the story. Why does it offend you? Why does it hurt you? Why does it this? Let's look at that and write it out. The thing is, you got to write it out because I can tell you one thing, Scott, and I'm sure you're aware of this. If you're trying to do it in your head, the ego's so good at distracting you. It says, what about this? What about that? And then it'll take you left, right, and center. But if you're writing it and you're looking at what you're writing, you always bring yourself back and you stay on track. You're following the steps to it rather than trying to do it in the mind. And I've tried it myself even years ago, trying to do it all in my mind without writing it.
And you have a good mind, so I take your advice. What, in closing, what would you like to share with people? Like, if it was just you and them and you wanted to share the secret to life, what would you say?
Okay. If I had to share something with people, I would say, listen, have fun, enjoy every aspect of it. Allow yourself to go and experience things that you've never experienced. Get to the point where you see the dance as a beautiful opportunity to express and to be the highest essence of yourself, because realistically, you've come here to be that here on this playground. And you have the capacities and so forth. So, and I've shared that with many people over the years, no matter what they're going through at that time, remember, this is a game. We come here to play. It seems and feels real, but we are here to enjoy it, to expand and grow and to become enriched. That's it. Enriched in our consciousness, enriched in our experiences and so forth, and become more enlightened. I said, let's have fun with this, because the more fun we have, the more play we have, the more opportunities we have, the more experiences we gain, the more flexibility, and we start bringing up more of our skill sets that we have within ourselves.
I started getting teary-eyed when you're talking about how beautiful it is, life is, and everything. I think I have some journaling to do.
Cool.
This has been great. Thank you so much, Franco.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, your wisdom, and bringing this information forth. It's so valuable to the collective. I'm sure people will be watching this and your other many videos that you generously give for many years to come. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. You're very welcome, and thank you. And I love doing this because it affects so many people. when they receive it, because it really resonates with them. Anyone that's actually gotten to a certain level of any form of clearing out of the filters and the densities resonate, and they blossom inside, because even if they don't fully resonate, the seed is still planted and the seed just germinates.
Exactly. I love you, man.
Love you too, my friend. I look forward to connecting again sometime. Take
Absolutely, we shall. We'll bring more to this audience, interviews on Xpnsion Network. My name's Scott Ware, publisher of Radiance Magazine. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Doesn't matter, whatever you want to give it. I don't abide to labels or anything, you know.
Ascension facilitator, or but a
Yeah,
transcendence coach?
I'm not so excited about the Ascension facilitator
Okay.
part. Or Ascension, it's got a lot of interpretations around,
Baggage.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's got baggage, that's for sure.
All right. So transcendence coach, master teacher, spiritual thought leader. I know it's you're a little uncomfortable. I get it, you know, but
Yeah, I just really basically I help people to remember who they are and whatever else. So it's just basically triggering their own consciousness. You know, I keep myself in my humble state, and you know, I do what I do, but at the same time, I don't want anybody to put me on a pedestal or to have any specific label connotation or anything like that. It's just, I'm just Franco. I do what I do. I mean, it's my soul that communicates through me. So it's whatever. So whatever name you give it, it's fine. This is the thing. People genuinely from a core, when they're not fed with this whole thing.
I think that's sort of like what happens naturally when people go to, when they're in nature. Like when people disconnect and they're in nature, regardless of their belief system or anything like that, and when you're just alone in nature, it has that effect on you.
chills you.
It chills
Yes.
you. You drop everything.
Yeah, well, you don't feel unsafe at that point, because that's an illusionary too, projection. But
Yeah.
you don't feel judged by nature. You don't, you know, nature itself is very loving in itself. So it kind of triggers the appreciation and love within that space, just being in nature.
That's right. You know, people don't think about that. It's like, I'm going to go to they should unconsciously, I think we're saying, I'm going to go to the park because the park loves on me.
Or the
Yes.
beach.
Or the
People feel
beach.
drawn to the beach.
I get loved on by the beach.
Or the, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Franco.
You're welcome. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to play, and we'll connect again some other